Let me ask the panel members to present themselves and the activities that they do. And we will start with Peter from Innovatrix. Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, Mickey. I'm running the global sales at Innovatrix, and Innovatrix basically is a biometric company very much focusing on developing the biometric modalities and technologies. So all we do is pretty much in-house development. And then obviously we make a large complex solutions out of those biometric engines and implement them worldwide for governments and enterprises. Okay, thanks for bringing up this slide. So, right, as I said, global company with the offices across the globe, established in 2004, which gives us 16 years of history on the market right now. So we are not exactly a startup anymore, as some companies like to call us. We have several large projects that we have deployed, primarily in governments, because as we all know, governments were the first around to use biometrics for document issuance and immigration and criminal purposes. But lately, we have seen quite a success also in the enterprise vertical or industry. Commercial companies such as telcos, banks, finance companies, they are all struggling to stay in touch with their clients through the physical contact given the pandemic situation. So they've been looking around for alternative solutions that would allow them to onboard, authenticate, and essentially keep providing the service without meeting the clients in person. So the number of projects we've done is more than 500, majority of them, like I said, in the government, but recently we are becoming quite known and successful in the enterprise. So next slide, please. Right. Before I talk about trusted enrollment, which is the topic of this presentation, which essentially means we want to keep enrolling, registering new citizens, clients, customers, travelers remotely, while we need to trust their identity and the credentials they present, we won't be able to meet them in person. So this is pretty much possible through or by leveraging the benefits of facial biometrics. And this technical / ugly slide here is just trying to show the audience that while facial biometrics might have been kind of a funny biometric modality a few years ago, the accuracy of facial biometrics as such has increased almost tenfold over the past 3 years. So now it's becoming a very serious mainstream, I dare to say, biometric modality, which is essentially as accurate as the fingerprint biometrics, which has been the only accurate biometrics, including iris in the past. And so the huge advantage of facial biometrics is the fact that you don't really need to have any special expensive hardware to be able to capture the fingerprints or face, as it is with the fingerprints. With facial biometrics, all you need is a camera, selfie camera, smartphone camera, and that's good enough in order to perform authentication and identification with a human's face only. And that's bringing us plenty of benefits, including the ability to remotely identify and register citizens or customers, passengers. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a typical user experience with a technology that's generally called digital onboarding. So digital onboarding, self-explanatory. This essentially means that you need to be able, or you will be able to onboard citizens and clients remotely without ever meeting them in person through the means of facial biometrics and some other supportive technologies, one of which is called liveness check or liveness detection, which is very important in order to assure that the human being or the face looking into the camera is actually a live human face and it's not a printout or it's not a playback on the iPad or a computer screen. And so combining multiple factors, we are able to bring the user through the very seamless experience of them showing their ID on the camera, smartphone camera. We would detect the document, detect the face on the document, extract the face from the document. We would also recognize the personal details from the textual description. Second step would be asking the person to perform or take a selfie. and we would perform in behind the scenes so-called liveness detection. So we would make sure the person holding the phone is an authentic person. We would then compare the face from the photo ID or from the ID with the selfie. We would evaluate multiple security criteria, such as document expiration, blacklisted document, AML, in case of financial institution. And we would basically evaluate and assess the overall risk of the onboarding or registration transaction. Obviously, also depending on what are you actually trying to do, whether you're opening a bank account, buying a air ticket, or applying for a loan, or applying for a new passport. We would then evaluate the overall risk and effectively process the transactions as if it was the person was actually meeting our clerk in the brick and mortar building. So we are technically able to do the registration of a person remotely, and that's a trusted registration. Next slide, please. The great examples, and these are all the projects we've done already with our clients. Like I said, we have a strong history with the governmental institutions. So when we launched the Trusted Enrollment digital onboarding platform, we've been deploying this left and right when it comes to enterprises. Like I said, primarily telcos, where they need to register SIM card buyers, and banks, where they need to keep opening new accounts remotely because they're closed. This was really an incredible wave of demand from these kind of institutions, but we were thinking, well, we've been quite successful and we are well established with the government, so how could we leverage this kind of technology with governments, and how could this technology help citizens to get service and governments to keep providing the service to citizens? And we've been actually working with different document issuance authorities in Latin America, in Asia, and South Africa. And what we came up with, and that's actually deployed and live, we have leveraged the existing ABIS backend platform, obviously, the biometric system. We have added in some cases, a new modality being face next to the fingerprint modality. And the governments have rolled out the application for citizens where they can basically reapply for a document that is about to expire or they lost it. So let's imagine the situation that your driver's license is about to expire. Normally you would have to go to the nearest office building, government office building, to be taken a picture of yourself, basically, fill out the paperwork, and 2 weeks later it'll come back and collect your renewed driver's license. The same applies to IDs, local ID cards. With Trusted Enrollment, you don't really need to go anywhere. All you do is launch the app, take a proper selfie, and mind you, this is an extracted selfie taking, so the application will tell you what to do exactly to get it right. Because in most cases, the photograph needs to be ICAO compliant or close to ICAO compliant. We are not really working on passport issuance yet. We are typically covering the national documents and driver's licenses. Once you do this, we continue with this series of steps that I was describing are valid also for banking world. So we would perform liveness detection. We would basically ask you to take a picture of your existing driver's license. If you lost it, it would be an ID card. We'll be comparing your face or your selfie with the photograph on this license, driver's license ID card. And if all plays out and everything is a match, we would send all these transactions to the server, and then the server basically proceeds with the processing as if you were just about or visiting the local government office. That's in production, and it's quite a service for the citizens that cannot travel or the government offices are closed. You just keep on provisioning the service remotely, which is quite a breakthrough for the government institutions. Another example would be e-visa application and issuance. So imagine the situation where you need to travel to a specific country which is requiring a visa. You would need to go to the office, to the nearest embassy primarily. So I'm going to Saudi Arabia. I would need to go to Vienna myself to apply for visa, leave my passport with them, and then 2 weeks later come back, collect my passport with the little sticker that says permitted to enter Saudi Arabia. This is now possible 100% remotely and digitally. So with the trusted enrollment, you as a potential traveler would apply for visa electronically. you would go through this series of steps again, scanning my passport with the MRC zone. In this particular case, we could make use of the biometric passport, which has a built-in NFC chip containing all my biometric details. So I would basically just read out the biometric details from the passport, including the personal details, which is protected because of the PK infrastructure. And then I would be taking a selfie and submitting my request. The government receiving the request would perform the background check just as they do when you're visiting the embassy, and would issue an electronic visa. This is again in production, and it's quite a successful project. And we see other governments, for instance, Canada and now South Africa, doing the same thing. So switching from a mandatory embassy visit to a full electronic visa application. Another one interesting case is proof of life, which means you or the citizens that are collecting welfare or retirement fees, they will be asked regularly to come to the nearest post office or to the nearest government office building and present themselves, because there have been many cases of fraud where the deceased person have been, still collecting benefits, basically their kids that continue to collect benefits, which is essentially a fraud against the government. So most governments are asking their citizens to periodically present themselves and make sure they're alive and they're still eligible for the welfare, for the benefits. And so this is now possible completely online. So imagine again, you have a web browser or a mobile application on your smartphone where you're asked to look into the camera. They would assess the liveness of the person, being the actual human being, not the photograph, and obviously compare this face with the face on file, and you would make sure that this person is still alive and able to collect the benefits. So these are three quite different use cases, I would say, where trusted enrollment is really helpful. And that's the reason why we are rolling this out as our new biometric offering or extension to the existing biometric ecosystem, because this is really beneficial for citizens. Thank you.